Hi everyone, my name is Nate. You're watching WASD 20, and today we're going to be making a character for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition using the basic rules. This video is going to be targeted mostly to newcomers because if you've done this before, you probably don't need a video to help you do it. But the basic rules are available for free, and I think that's really especially great for newcomers because maybe a friend has invited you to play, you don't know anything about it, and this way you don't have to go out and buy a book to try the game. So I think it's a really smart move on the part of Wizards of the Coast, and yeah, I'm glad. I'm still hoping to get the Player's Handbook personally, but we'll be just fine with the basic rules, even though it gives you a little more limited options. So we'll be making a fighter here today, and I got invited to a one-shot campaign, and I'm going to be playing a fighter, so I decided that's what I do. Maybe I'll do a future video on other classes, but yeah. Anyway, you'll want a pencil, you want the character sheet, you probably want some dice or a dice roller that you can use online, and without further ado, let's get going. Alright, so we're going to be using the process outlined here starting on page 6. This is going to be a really useful page for us, and it just takes us through step by step, and then we're going to be moving on through the chapters as we go here. Before this page, there is some good info about the basics of the game and what a role-playing game is like and stuff like that. And after the character creation stuff, there's some good info on the rules of combat and all that stuff. But we're not going to be covering that stuff today. We're going to stick just to character creation. Alright, so the first step here is to choose a race. And I'm actually going to be rolling for races. There are 4 races in this book: dwarf, elf, halfling, and human. So I'm going to be rolling a d4 to see which one. And I got 1, so dwarf. I'll be making a dwarf fighter. All right. Now we'll head over to the races here in chapter 2, and we will read about the dwarf. So I do recommend reading all this. This is really good and kind of gives you some of the background on dwarfs. But for me, I'm going to be skipping over to the dwarf traits, which are going to be things that affect our stats. So ability score increase. Constitution score increases by 2. I'm just going to denote that right here. That a note to myself. I need to add 2 to that when I determine my ability scores. The next section, age, I'm going to skip that for now. Alignment, I'll also skip. Size, speed. Speed will be relevant. Base walking speed is 25 feet, even when I'm wearing heavy armor. So that's the advantage of a dwarf. Alright, speed 25 feet. By the way, this character sheet is like the last couple pages of the free PDF here if you're looking for where to get that. Alright, and next we have Dwarven Resilience. Oh, Dark Vision. I'll write that down here for features and traits. That's nice about a dwarf. You can see in the dark and within 60 feet. And it's not, completely in the dark, but yeah, you can read that there. Get more details on that. Dwarven Resilience. You have advantage on saving throws against poison, and you have resistance against poison damage. So. Next up, Dwarven Combat Training. I have proficiency with Battle Axe, Hand Axe, Throwing Hammer, and Warhammer. I'm not going to bother writing that down because actually as a fighter I already have proficiency with all weapons, both simple weapons and martial weapons, which are a little more limited, like some of these. Tool proficiency, I will write that down, and I think I'm going to pick Smith's Tools. Stone cutting. Whenever you make an intelligence or history check related to the origin of stonework, you're considered proficient in the history skill and add double your proficiency bonus to the check instead of your normal proficiency bonus. I'm just going to write for now stone cutting here. And since I don't feel like writing all that down, I'll just make a note of the page if I need to refer back to it. All right. Next up, languages. I can read and write Common and Dwarvish. So I'll put those down here. Those should be capitalized, I guess, but oh well. All right. And I now get to choose a sub-race. I'm just going to roll for them, Hill Dwarf or Mountain Dwarf. I assume the player's handbook has more, but I'll just go with these two. I'm going to roll a d6. If I get 1, 2, 3, it'll go Hill Dwarf. If I get Mountain Dwarf, it'll be 4, 5, 6. 5, Mountain Dwarf it is. So, Mountain Dwarf strength score increases by 2. So, plus 2 there. And proficiency with light and medium armor. I'm already proficient with all armor types, so I'm good there. All right. And yeah, you can read a little more about them here, but for now, just trying to keep things moving here. All right, so the next step for us is to, we have done one, we now get to choose a class. I already chose fighter, so I'm going to skip over to the fighter section, which is on page 24. Again, you can read all about this, but I'm going to skip straight to the statistics here that help us fill out our sheet. And for us, we have hit dice, and this 1d10. So it's a 10-sided dice, and that'll be explained in the rules later. But that is the basis for our hit points. Hit points at first level, 10 plus Constitution modifier. I don't have my Constitution modifier yet, so I'm just going to put 10 plus, and then I'll just make that really small so I can write in my actual hit points later. Armor, proficient in all armor, shields, all weapons, simple and martial. Tools, none, but I do have that Smith's tools there. If you feel like writing, all weapons and armor here, so you remember, that's fine. But most people tend to just remember that about fighters. Saving throws, I get an advantage. I get to use my proficiency bonus, which I'll explain in a little bit, on strength and constitution saving throws. So I'm going to check those here. Then, skills. I get to choose 2 skills. I'm going to actually save that because depending on what fighting style or in some of the other things, I might already get some of these. I'm going to hold off on that, but I'll remember that that's here on page 24. All right, good. Let's move on to equipment. Now, for equipment, I'm actually going to be, this makes it nice. You can actually choose either A or B for each one, and if you're new to the game, that might be a good way to go. For me, I'm actually going to calculate, I'm going to roll for my gold, and then I'm going to go buy stuff myself. One thing I almost forgot about is for a fighter, you're going to want to go through the rest of this and pick an archetype and such. So, actually, I don't get an archetype yet at first level. I get fighting style and second wind. So, on my proficiency bonus that I'm going to be adding, and sorry, I did this out of order. I had to come back because I forgot. But so I've got more of this filled out than you see. But proficiency bonus is going to be +2, and I'll add that to all skills and throws that I'm proficient in. I'll be able to add 2 to my rolls for that. Fighting style is next, and since I'm pretty high in strength and constitution, I'm going to lean away from archery and some of the more dexterity-based things, but I think I'll roll for it. 1d6, but if I get a 1, I'm going to re-roll. All right, I got a 4, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Great weapon fighting. That's kind of what I was hoping for. All right, so when you roll a 1 or a 2 on damage die for an attack you make with a melee weapon that you are wielding with 2 hands, you can re-roll the die and must use the new roll, even if the new roll is a 1 or 2. So it kind of helps prevent me somewhat from the critical fail. So I'm just going to remember that great weapon fighting. Again, I have more of this filled out than you saw in the last one, but great weapon fighting. And I'll make a note of the page 25, so I can read more about that. All right, so I'll have to kind of just remember that, and that's going to affect my equipment. The other thing is second wind. This is a way for a fighter to kind of heal himself. I'll write that down here, but you can just kind of remember that. So second wind, and that's also on page 25. You can roll a d10 in the middle of combat, basically as an action, and regains those hit points, and then you can't use it again until you rest. The rest of this does not apply to a first level fighter. So we'll move on. Number 3 is determining our ability scores. This right here is a standard point array that you can use. I'm going to roll for the scores because I kind of like rolling randomly for stuff in case you can't tell. I need 6 numbers. Alright, and I've got a piece of scrap paper here I'll be writing them on for now, and then I'll arrange them how I want. I'm not going to be going straight down the line. Some people do that. But the method I'm using is rolling 4 6-sided die, and then you drop the lowest, and that process is outlined in the book. So 10, I dropped a 2, and I'm left with 13. Oh man, this is insane. 17. This is like too good. I would almost, if I was really going to play with this character, I might actually re-roll because I don't really want to break the game here. But I will accept the dice for now. I probably won't be playing with this character. Alright, now I'm going to assign these numbers. Fighters, they would generally recommend you want a high strength and high constitution. I've already got bonuses to those actually, but I'm going to actually keep those pretty high. So I think what I'm going to do is have a 17 strength, plus my 2 would make it for a 19. So cross off that. Dexterity, I'm going to make a 17. I'm going to keep it at that. Then we've got my 16 for constitution, plus 2, I'm going to make it an 18. And then for these are explained in the rules. I'm not going to go into them right now, but I am just going to, we'll say intelligence, give myself a 10, and then charisma 13, wisdom 14. Okay. The next thing we need to do is determine our ability score modifiers. Some people have this memorized. I don't. Well, I might, but anyway, I don't want to risk it and get them wrong. Those are on page 7 here, and you'll want to write those in because those are going to affect your skill rules and such, skill checks, and a few other things. All right, so I can see here that 18 and 19 are plus 4. Wow, that's really high. I've never had a plus 4 modifier before with any character. Now I have 2. All right, and then we've got 17 is plus 3. 10 is 0. 14 and 13. 13 is plus 1, 14 is plus 2. Okay. One thing that I'm going to want to remember is that my dexterity modifier is going to also be my initiative, and this is how quickly you get into combat. It's based on your dexterity, so I'm going to put plus 3 there. All right. Good. So that's it for now. Let's now take a look at the next step. All right, the next step in our process is describing our character. And I actually think this is an error in the book. I think this is supposed to be down here. But anyway, describing our character. And so I'm going to turn to chapter 4. And this is mostly personality and background. But it will have some impact, too, on the stats. So, as we read here, we would want to come up with a name for our character, which I'll do later. Sex, I'm probably going to be a male. That's what I usually do. Height and weight, sure, we can do that in a moment. This is a little bit complicated, but basically, for a dwarf, I'm a mountain dwarf, and so I'm going to be a base height of 4 feet, and then I add 2d4 to that. So here we go. I got a 4 and a 2, so I would be 4 feet 6 inches. 4 feet 6 inches. Weight, we can determine that too. I'm going to be adding, so I got 6 for that, and now I'm going to be 130 pounds plus 6 times 2d6 pounds. All right, so a little complicated, but 130 pounds. Okay, so I got 11. 11 times 6 is 66. Rolled a 6 on that. That times 11, 66, plus 133, 130, that's 196. So, pretty heavy. I think I did that right. Anyway, Moving on, other physical characteristics. So you can describe your character. You can even draw a picture here. You could cut out a picture. You can kind of do what you want with that. But I'm going to be focusing, again, mainly on the statistics here. Choosing your alignment is an important step, and I think that will help you role play. I'm going to skip that for now, and I'll come back to it. Languages, personal characteristics. I will be skipping over inspiration. You can read about that. But I will be going to background. That's an important one. And so for backgrounds, I'll be rolling. I think there are 6 of them here. 6 different backgrounds if I'm counting correctly. So I'll roll a d6 to see which one I get. 5. Noble 4. Sage 5. Okay. All right, so as a sage, I am going to get a couple things here. First of all, I have Arcana and History skill proficiencies, so I'm going to check those off on my skill proficiencies here. Oops, that's the wrong sheet. Sorry, that's an old one. Arcana and History. And then I get 2 languages of my choice. I'm going to pick Elvish. I assume this is 2 additional. Elvish and Orcish. Alright, so I've got those written down there. And then I'm also going to get some equipment. A bottle of black ink, a quill, a small knife, a letter from a dead colleague. I'm not going to bother writing this stuff down right now, but you would want to probably write this somewhere, like on your equipment section. Now for these other parts of my background, I'm going to be pausing the video and writing them down, and then we'll come take a look. Okay, so I went through these and I rolled randomly for all of them, and these are the things I got. So I'm not going to go through them now, but these can really help you in the role-playing aspect and can have a pretty big impact at times if you really stick to these. You don't have to roll for them. You can just choose ones you like that fit with your idea of your character, but I decided to roll for them. A lot of fighters would just automatically pick Soldier, and that is a valid thing to do. It seems more applicable in a lot of ways, but for me I decided to roll for it and maybe make a little more of a unique character. Okay. The other thing is sometimes it can give you a tip to what alignment you might be. So I didn't really see too much that tipped me, toward one alignment or another. I chose Chaotic Good. I believe that one of these did say, it was this one that did say neutral by it. So anyway, I just decided to go with Chaotic Good. I won't talk too much about alignments right now. The next step we see here is choosing equipment. So let's go to Chapter 5 and take a look at that. I'm going to be rolling for my gold, and the way I'll do this for Fighter is rolling 5d4 and multiplying that times 10. So I've got my 5d4 here. Big money.
Okay, I got 1, 4, that's 5, plus 4 is plus 4 is 9, plus 3 is 12, plus 4
is 16. So that's pretty darn good. That's the best roll I've ever gotten for gold. So I'm going to have 160 to work with, and I'm going to write that down here. 160 gold pieces. Now I'm going to take a moment, and what I'm going to do is just I'm going to do some shopping. I'm going to look around, and I'll come back and talk about what I selected. Alright, so I'm not taking this too seriously right now because I'm probably not going to be playing with this character, but I did record some of the things that I bought here. I've definitely got under 160 gold pieces worth of stuff here if you do the math. So these are some things that I'm going to need. I've got scale mail, and right now I'm going to record my armor class. If we notice here, my constitution modifier is +4, and for armor class, for this armor, I actually only get to add up to +2. So this one's limited. I'll show you here. It says for scale mail, dex modifier maximum of 2. So I'm not going to be able to get higher than 2. And I think that's also going to affect my initiative. I think this will actually be +2. So +2, and then some of the other things that's going to impact are my armor class. So dexterity +2. Scale mail, we can read down here, is 14. So 14 + 2 is 16. For my hit points, I can also do that now just to kind of tie up a loose end there. My constitution modifier is +4, and then I get to add +2 for my dexterity. So that's going to be 6 + 10 is going to give me 16 total hit points. All right. Recording some of this other stuff here, my greatsword is going to be my main weapon. That's a two-handed weapon, and that will give me that that bonus from great weapon fighting. So the attack bonus is going to be my strength plus my proficiency bonus, because I'm proficient in all weapons. So that's going to be +6, and the damage is going to be, I think for this one it's 2d6, and I looked that up on the chart in the book here, and the type is slashing. Okay, I'll do that for my other weapons too, and you just kind of calculate that. For melee weapons, it's always going to be strength based. For my crossbow here, it's actually, I'll do that, crossbow, and I'll put my club up there. Club is nice because it's nice to have a bludgeoning weapon, and it's pretty cheap. So crossbow, this is attack bonus +2, I believe, because I only get to add 2 of my dexterity modifier because of my armor, but then also I get a proficiency bonus, so it's going to be +4. Alright, and then the damage on that, if I look it up here on the chart on page 46, crossbow, light, it is 1d8 piercing, 1d8. Oh, and I forgot, I have to add my dexterity bonus to that, so 1d8 +2 piercing for this, 2d6, and then I add my strength modifier of +4. So 2d6 +4. Okay, so that's how you calculate weapon damage. And then other stuff here. I got some bolts for my crossbow. I think I got 20 bolts. Dungeoneer's pack. It's very useful. I highly recommend looking at these. It just makes it simpler than having to buy everything individually. Get it in one big pack. Backpack, crowbar, tinderbox, etc. It does not come with a bedroll, I don't think. So that's something you probably want to buy. I should do that. I'll add that to my list. Bedroll. So there are some other useful things, and you know, you can look through here. But it comes with some pretty useful things. So that's good. Also got an acid vial. You never know when that will come in handy against certain enemies or in certain situations. I've found that pretty useful. So anyway, this is good enough for now. And I've showed you how to calculate weapon damage and your armor class. I think we're good on that. If you have a shield, you'll also be able to add 1. The book here only has 1 shield, and it's +1 to your armor class. But I have a two-handed weapon, so I'm not doing that. All right, let's now spend some time tying up some other loose ends. Oh, one thing here that I'm noticing is passive wisdom perception. This is going to be a wisdom-based skill, and I won't explain exactly how it works, but basically it's going to be 10 plus my wisdom modifier, which is 12. If I had perception as a skill here, which I might actually take, then that would go up. But that brings me to the next thing I have to look up here, and that is my skills. So if we go back to Fighter, Chapter 3, you notice the skills that I got to choose were 2 skills from Acrobatics, Animal Handling, Athletics, History, Insight, Intimidation, Perception, and Survival. I am going to pick, let's see, I really do like those wisdom-based skills, actually, quite a bit. I like perception. I like survival, so I'm going to pick both of those. Survival and perception. And I've also got history and arcana. So, with that said, now I'm going to be calculating my modifiers here. So I'm going to skip ahead so you can see that I have that done. But basically, these are all going to be coming from my ability modifiers. So strength +4 there. Oh, actually, I'm proficient in that. I messed that up, so it's +6 because I got it checked. I get to add my proficiency bonus there. So +6, getting messy here. I highly recommend using pencil. I'm using pen, so it's easier to see. And then the rest, Constitution will also be +6 because I get to add my proficiency bonus. The rest will be straight up my modifiers there. For these ones, Acrobatics, Dex, I'm going to be adding my Dexterity modifier, which is +3. For ones that I have checked, I get to add that proficiency bonus again. That means I'm proficient in that skill. So Arcana, just kind of a weird one for a fighter, I get +0 normally, but I get +2 proficiency bonus, so I add that. All right, so I'm going to skip ahead until I have that done. Okay, so I finished with those, and I actually have to correct myself. I took it to the Tabletop RPG group on Facebook to ask this question because I was starting to question myself. I actually only take that limit of +2 to my modifier for my armor class. So my armor class would have been 17, but since I'm wearing that medium armor that has a limit of 2, it's only 16. For the rest, my initiative is actually still +3, acrobatics +3. So I was wrong on that. Sorry for the confusion. But I think that pretty much does it for the rest of this. I'm going to go ahead and write my player name, Nate, and my character name I decided to go with Nathanius, which is a derivative of my own name, and I think it sounds ridiculous. The back, it is kind of nice that they have this stuff. This really helps with the role-playing, character backstory, allies, organizations, and it's just a good place to take notes during your game. But I'm not going to bother filling out more of it right now. So that's some of the basics. I encourage you to share this, especially if you know some new players who are trying to get into the hobby. I think it's great that Wizards of the Coast has made the basic rules available, even if they are fairly limited. And it's easy to jump in and create a character using the steps I showed you. Please feel free to leave any comments. Really appreciate you watching, and make sure you subscribe and like. Thanks a lot.